Hello and welcome to Bunto's Must Jesus Be Straight Hangout, the most daunting homosexual to straight society, the one that asks why it must be so. Welcome tonight. We have a great panel. We have Astis, we have Jeff Keller, we have Michael Ann, and of course Pyong. We're going to be discussing what is important about the Jesus story. And go ahead, Michael. Tell us what you think is most important about the Jesus story.
Well, I haven't read all of the Jesus story yet. However, I have heard about it most of my life from other people. So I'm now embarking on a quest to understand and read the full Jesus story. So I have to say, though, I'm not doing the New Testament first. I'm on page 4 of my new little hobby, which has become the Bible.
Astis?
Yeah.
Bible reading as a hobby, what do you think?
Not my hobby.
Can you approach it as a hobby, or can you have to be a believer?
Yes, of course you can approach
Oh, it helps if you're a believer.
Yeah.
Does it help to be a believer?
It makes it a much better story. Infinitesimally.
You just can't approach it without any sentimentality, just, sort of reading to see how it's constructed?
I guess you could. But I'm not able to do that because, again, it comes with the kit with me.
Jeff, can you read the Bible as a hobby?
Sure.
I mean, would you do it
Can I personally?
Yeah, would you personally do it?
If I had a boatload of time, I would read it cover to cover, which I don't. I would read the Quran. I'd like to read a lot of things that I don't have actual time to read. I don't think the Bible, if I thought the Bible was really a reliable historic document, or whether it really was much more than mythology, I would put it as a higher priority, but I really don't think that, so I don't tend to, it's not a big deal for me to read that. I think there are more important things to read.
And I'm really stuck in the old historical aspects. I would give my left arm to go walk Jerusalem and find, all the Sodom and Gomorrah and all the stuff they say that's there. I think the history is just fascinating, and to know that it was your Savior and he walked there, be able to go and walk where he walked. I mean, how cool is that?
Pyong, have you ever just busted out a Bible and read it?
Yo! Have I ever busted out a Bible and read it?
Yeah, just for the hell of it?
Maybe a long time ago, probably. I think so. But
those lonely motel nights where you can only read the Bible?
Oh, yeah?
That was a joke.
But no, you go back, what's important about Jesus? I would say the good stories. You ignore the bad stuff and the good stories. I think that, there's some good stuff in there.
Like baby Jesus in a manger. You could do that.
Yeah. Yeah, baby, that's a great story, isn't it? Baby Jesus.
And the 3 wise guys come and give him gifts.
Right. Something for nothing.
No, really, Pong. I mean, if people start busting out scripture, don't you feel like you're at a disadvantage because you haven't read the Bible?
Oh, no, man. I was indoctrinated. I was indoctrinated, and I went all the way through my high school Catholic. So I have a more sophisticated understanding of religion than a lot of people.
Oh, all right.
Well, I shouldn't say sophisticated. I mean, I'm familiar with all the Bible stuff, except the stuff that they leave out, like don't wear 2 types of cloth, or don't eat shellfish, or
the Levitical laws.
Right.
Okay,
whatever. Yeah, Leviticus. That's right. That stuff is in Leviticus, isn't it? But I don't profess to be a Bible scholar by any stretch.
Well, okay, Michael Ann, you want to be a Bible scholar, or you just want to know the Bible?
I'm picking it up as if it were a combination of an encyclopedia, a religious reading, and I don't know.
mean,
I see it a number of ways. I want to come to understand it. I want to see the Septuagint. I want to see everything.
okay, so like you're underlining it and going back and forth and using concordance.
Oh, no. Here, you know what I'm really doing? I have an audio book of the King James Bible that's read by all the major Hollywood stars. And I actually listen to them read the Bible to me as I read it. And I'm getting music, I'm getting stuff. It's awesome. It's the best entertainment.
It's like going to a movie.
Almost.
Who did Revelation?
And it's wonderful.
Or is it what book of the Bible is it?
I'm not there yet, but it is. But it's you just go to any audio version of the Bible, and go to audiobooks, and you'll see they have like the Ten Commandments was done, and you get full orchestral, the whole 9 yards, and you hear movie stars whose names you know and voices you can recommend, or recognize, like Richard Dreyfuss and stuff.
Do they have Vincent Price? Because he would be great for Revelation.
Or
no,
Rubens?
This is
Paul Rubens doing Revelations would be awesome.
Oh, yes, Pee-wee.
This is contemporary. I'll have to go. I'll skip ahead and I'll get back to you on that. How's that?
Okay, look, some people, Michael, underline, use concordance, use different translations,
Yeah, but I'm not there. I'm not there yet. I don't see that I would ever get there. I'll read it cover to cover, absorb what I can, move on to the next book, read cover to cover. I'm not going into a Bible study and taking a look at Genesis 6 for the rest of my life. I don't care to get that deep. The blonde doesn't go that deep.
Anyway, Jeff, like if you're going to study the Bible, it would just because you want to discern who is not saying what actually happened in the Bible. Like somebody was trying to pull the wool over your eyes, you could say, hey, that's not in the Bible.
I guess that would be part of the reason for reading it, but I would be reading it out of curiosity. It's an historic document. People put a lot of stock into it, so it is sort of culturally important. I don't think it would tell me much about the origins of the universe.
A historical document, right? So you're going to have to go with the best translation you can find, right? You're not going to go with just, the ECV or, the little kid's Bible.
Yeah. That's a good point. No, I wouldn't go with the little kid's Bible, but I would go with, I guess I would choose what I think most people in modern times have read and what most people tend to.
I mean, are you going to learn Greek to study the Bible, Greek and Hebrew, Arabic?
Sorry.
No, yeah, but you don't have to. I mean, you have like translations that are right there, and that's the beautiful thing about doing it with like a guy like Charles Messner, where he can look at a chapter and educatedly guide you through it, knowing full well he spent 60 years looking at the Septuagint and all the other shit that's out there.
What happens, Michael,
no need
is
to reinvent the wheel.
These hardcore Bible nuts, Bible enthusiasts that have to learn Greek and Arabic and Hebrew,
Well, I will tell you, one of the interesting things is somebody was talking about the caduceus, which is two snakes going up the spinal cord, which is supposed to look like DNA and all this other sort of stuff.
Right.
And meanwhile, the Greek translation of caduceus, which is the medical symbol, means commerce.
So
knowing those languages and having somebody who understands all of that, he's done all the research so he can speak to it and tell you that all in one sentence. Give you the Greek translation. This is the Hebrew. This is how you change Hebrew. I mean, this Dr. Messler is just awesome. Awesome.
Okay. Hey, Jeff,
I'd just like to finish what I was saying. Sorry,
go ahead, Jeff.
Coughing for some reason. But I would. My interest, I don't think it's invalid to want to read an original translation of an historic document, regardless of what it is. I mean, I think you can learn a lot from doing so. My interest, however, would be more cultural. What is it? Which version did most modern people read, and what do they think is true? That would probably be of more interest to me personally. But I wouldn't diminish being a scholar and learning ancient Greek and reading a lot of classic literature in that way, including the Bible. I guess it would be Aramaic or whatever it was written in, but I wouldn't diminish that. It wouldn't be my goal as a layperson, though, to read it.
Brojo, are you there? He's stinking with it.
Hey, Jeff, what?
Hey, I'm here.
I was going to ask Brojo if he read the Bible.
Yes.
I mean, how many times? Are you like a Bible enthusiast, or are you just a piker?
I haven't gotten to it much lately, but when I was a Christian, read the Bible pretty often, especially the New Testament.
Okay, which is the most important thing to do when reading the Bible? Read the New Testament, Old Testament, start from the beginning, start from the end. What do you do?
Oh, God, when I was a Christian, you were evangelizing, you would tell people, oh, read, I believe it was John first, and then maybe Romans, and then get into the Gospels.
Okay, so you start with the New Testament. Start with the Jesus story.
The Jesus stuff, yeah.
Because if they start with the Genesis, they're going to quit, right? They're going to get so far, and then they're going to quit.
Oh, once you get to starting the begets, that can get pretty boring. Yeah.
What were you going to say, Eric?
Jeff
why you
referred to
do
the
it.
Bible as a historical document. I just wanted to know what in Jeff's mind constituted a historical document. I mean, it's true that it has played a part of, I guess, human history, but what exactly does he mean by that?
No, I'm sorry. That's a really good point. I meant to explain that because I don't think it's a reliable historic document in the sense that it tells us specific things about history, but I think it's an historic document in the sense that it's been so influential to people throughout history that in that sense it's historic. But no, I agree with you. It has some references to actual historical events, but I would not call it a work of history as such.
Got you, buddy.
That's all. It's literature, but it's pervasive throughout history. That's my opinion.
Okay, so Michael Ann brought up the fact that it helps to be a believer if you're going to read the Bible.
I think it makes it more fun.
That it makes it more, you get more enthusiasm if you believe in this stuff to read
And
it.
then you add in the Hollywood tape with the movie stars, and you got the triple threat.
Right. The Bible has to come to a level of entertainment so you don't burn out, you don't get bored and quit reading it.
Yeah,
Right.
Music
that's
and
how you
special
do the
effects and great acting can elevate any lousy script.
That's why Michael Ann was saying she wants to go see Sodom and Gomorrah. The action scenes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's right. I want to see that hellfire and brimstone. They say it's still there. You can pick it right out of the rocks.
Okay, so you start reading the Bible, and then all of a sudden you start realizing that people only tell you the nice things about the Bible. They don't tell you the real horror stories that are in the Bible. What happens when you encounter them, Michael Ann? I mean, you just ignore them willfully, or you just, you're gonna have to start dealing with apologetics. For example, killing entire like the Amalekites, killing entire races. Stoning women.
See, you're
sending the she-bear to kill the children who mocked the prophet.
okay. Well,
Because of his bald head.
kids. I'm still in Genesis. I know not of what you speak, so I can't answer that question. Obviously, if there were things that went on that I can't explain and wouldn't like to see done, I let God do my light work. I don't worry about that shit.
And these are spoilers, by the way.
Spoiler alert.
Oh, okay.
That's okay.
Well,
Trust me. I probably won't recognize it when I get there, but I'll remember you guys if I do.
I mean,
it really drags in Act 2.
See, here's the deal. I tell people all the time, what I know extremely well.
Right.
Everything else is pretty mediocre. This is in the mediocre category.
Yeah.
If we were in my top 2 favorite topics, you guys would be speechless.
okay.
Hey, Brojo, how did you reconcile that kind of stuff? Did you just say, well, he's a vengeful God, fuck it?
Yeah, again, when I was a Christian, I was mostly in the New Testament, and we really didn't go into that. And you pretty much, you went to church, you heard the sermon, you kind of just took it at face value. Really, for the most part, didn't go into deep stuff. And even at Bible studies, when we did get more in depth, it was more, again, about New Testament concepts, spiritual gifts, role of men and women in the church, that kind of thing. We never got into, all the slicing and dicing in the Old Testament. A lot of that stuff I didn't look at until, a few years ago, and which started my deconversion. Was part of my deconverting. Yeah.
Really?
Yes, happened to me too. When I started reading Hebrews and Romans, well, actually, when I learned that the epistles came before the Gospels, that started putting the nail in the head for my atheism.
Right. That's interesting. Okay.
Because the Bible is a man-made invention. You really do have to read it without any sentiment, I believe. Okay, well, we're reading the Bible, right, and we encounter these horror stories. Okay, we keep pushing on, right? Is there any advice to give Michael Ann, like how to push past them? That's the thinking of the time. Isn't that what you'd say?
I think you're going to need another Christian in here.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
because we're not going to definitely encourage Michael. I'm not going to encourage. Just look past the bad stuff. Get right to Jesus. And
okay. When you encounter these stories, weren't you telling yourself like, well, these are just outliers. They're just incidents. You didn't totally sink the whole God concept, right? Right at that moment, right, Bro Joe?
Because there was a whole bunch of bad people. God had to wipe them out for the good of everybody else. That was pretty much it.
Well, what really did? Let me see. Why? I don't want to get into that. I don't want to spoil Michael's experience. But let's talk about the concepts that we know, that Jesus is a nice person, right? Can we all accept that Jesus is a real nice person? That's what they have us believe in the Bible.
What was it? Hey,
okay, well, first of all, I don't think he's a person. Second of all, because it says in the Bible he's neither male or female. Okay, so we got to give him other.
Jesus, Michael.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure he's a man.
No, it does not say that.
Oh, somebody told me it did.
Hey, it also says you didn't take.
You were just saying you didn't read it.
See, this is the shit I hear in Nadia's room. That's why you gotta have a working knowledge of the Bible so you don't get led down the path. But
right, it does not say that.
Oh.
It doesn't say he's a man or a woman. The Bible.
No, it does not say that. It does not say that. Whoever told you that is wrong. What it does say that there's no male nor female in Christ, meaning that Christ makes no distinction whether you're a man or a woman. You're all looked at upon the same. It's not
Who's
that
your daddy?
Yes.
Jesus, strong enough for a man, pH balanced for
Right. Well, I was thinking. Well, they said it was a boy, didn't they? I mean, when Elizabeth, who was a cousin of Mary, she said it's a boy. So
right.
yeah,
he's the son of God.
He's the son. So yeah. So no, Michael. If they said that he wasn't a man or a woman, no, because Elizabeth, who was a cousin of Mary, said it was a boy. So that nails down Jesus as a man.
He would have to be a man anyway, because the man, gets the birthright. He's got to be from the line of David, and so it would have to be a man.
I understand that, and I see him as a man, and I understand he gave his only son, and that's a boy, and that's like human, and like I get all that, but that's just the charade of it, I think. He's much more than that.
That ain't the only one.
I think he's just more than that.
Okay, hey. Messler is saying this, or somebody in Nadia's Hangout
No. I just feel that even though he walked as a man, he was not like us.
Well, of course,
he was God. Other. He was other. So I'm just separating him. Although he walked like us, he was not really of us.
So it was okay.
Go ahead.
I ain't gonna say it.
He gets the only thing gets to be an elite. How's that sound?
Okay, Michael. In your mind right now, what's the most important thing Jesus has to be?
Here's my deal, Bunto, and I know you're not going to like this at all, but I never worry about the JV squad. Okay, I go to the big guy. Jesus is not the rung of the ladder I'm stuck on.
Holy cow! Jesus is the one that's going to let you into heaven. You didn't know that? through him, you have to get to heaven.
I know. I'm working on his dad, so I'm thinking it's not going to be a problem. There'll be a ticket at the gate for me.
At the end of Matthew, he has superseded his father.
No, I'm a shoo-in.
Brojo, at the end of Matthew, did not Jesus Christ supersede the authority of the Father? That's the way I understood it.
Well, the text?
Maybe it's just a little arrogant of me to think that I'm not going to have a problem getting through Jesus. I think I got that covered. How's that?
Gunning through Jesus.
Getting through. Getting through.
Okay.
Yeah. I do belong to the NRA, but I would not be gunning through. I'd be getting through.
You know how they've redone stories like, Romeo and Juliet, modernized, right? Well, imagine if they tried to modernize the whole story of Jesus and sit in like a city.
Okay. They could probably do it.
There's a bunch of people.
It would make a lot of sense to a lot of people. Okay, I asked Michael, what was the most important thing about Jesus? And she told me this JV thinking. Well, what is the most important thing about Jesus to you, Michael?
To lay down the word. He was a prophet, and his job was to speak.
Michael, he was God. He was God. That is the most important thing about Jesus.
I believe he was the Son of God, was he not?
Brojo, this guy was God, correct?
It all depends on which quote-unquote Christian you ask.
Yeah, it depends on the flavor. Like if you're talking Catholicism, it was they're the triumvirate. They're one and the same, right?
Right.
And so yeah, so they're all the same hootenanny.
Well, I'm into like the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Okay, so I'm given that there's two people there, and I believe all three of them are one. I got that whole thing working, not bad for the blonde, but there was a Father and a Son, right?
Right. The Father was the Old Testament, and the Son was the New. But
there you go.
You know what the New Covenant? You ever heard that term, the New Covenant? You know what that means?
Not really.
What that means is that there's a new law that God, first, only the Israelites were the chosen people, but then when Jesus came, then everybody could jump on board. So that is what they call the New Covenant.
Oh, okay, yes, I did. I didn't understand it. I got that.
Everybody agree with that? That Jesus was pretty much the New Covenant. That's what the New Testament, the new story.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what I'm trying to get to the thing about this thing. All right. Michael Ann says that there's facets of Jesus that really aren't that important to her personally, okay? But let me ask you this, guys. Does it matter if Jesus was a straight man or a homosexual? Does it matter?
Not a bit.
Where the hell did that come from?
That's the name of this hangout.
You're
okay.
dealing with Bunto, Michael.
Came from Bunto.
When did we leap to God is a what? What?
Well, you said, Michael Ann, that there was facets of Jesus that didn't interest you at all, like what color his shoes were, or where he was born, if he was a prophet or God himself, right?
What page is Jesus is a homosexual on? Because I'm going there now.
What page? What page is Jesus a homosexual, and what page is he a straight man? Does it matter?
I don't know. I don't ever remember a gay sexual passage in the Bible.
Bunto's talking out of his ass. That's what he is.
No, it's the name of this hangout. I was hangout with Bunto. Must Jesus?
I came late after the naming of the hangout then because I.
No, okay. Well, let me ask you this, Michael.
Chapter and verse, me, Bunto. I want chapter and verse where you see Jesus as being homosexual. Come on.
Well,
exactly.
I got a Bible in front of me. Come on.
Let me ask you this: Is he an alien? How about that one? I could probably get that one better than I could homosexual.
Well, why? I mean, what is bad about Jesus' sexuality? What's important about it?
Well, for one, I guess, and that depends on how you interpret Old Testament. It was a sin.
That's
so.
Wrong?
But Jesus needs to be sinless.
Right. So okay, so that sinks it for his sexuality being anything but straight.
Bingo.
And even then, Jesus never got married, so never really never had sex.
I got 2 words for
there's so many years. There's so many years of Jesus that are missing,
To
you know.
my understanding, he could be
There's so many years of Jesus that are missing,
to,
you know.
to my understanding, he could be a homosexual as long as he didn't act upon it, right?
I don't know. He
Well,
did a
if
lot
he's
of things.
walking around
He did a lot of things in quote unquote secret, right? But are written in the Bible. So who knows?
With 12 other guys.
Didn't he ask his followers to eat him?
Oh God!
All right.
Here it comes.
What the fuck have you
Buckle
been
up.
drinking?
It was in John, wasn't it? Okay, kids, doesn't
Bunto,
matter.
Bunto, take a deep breath, honey. Have you had a snack and a nap? Because clearly,
No, well, it upsets
I think your blood
Christians.
sugar has dropped because you're starting to babble.
Okay, kids, am I babbling? Does this
Actually, not
upset-
really. I've heard a number of people suggest that he might have been gay.
Right.
And they'll bring up a bunch of passages and say, well, look at this, look at this, look at this.
No.
I've seen people
Mary Magdalene. Mary Magdalene. Not Johnny Smith.
Maybe he was bi.
We never heard about Johnny then.
Well, there was this thing called the Secret Gospel of Mark, because in Mark, there's a scene when he was in the garden praying. Remember when the soldiers came upon him?
There were no Brokeback Mountain scenes, parables,
Michael-
hymns,
Michael,
psalms, or suggestions.
You cannot
What's
say
up?
that because you have not read the Bible.
Okay, well,
in
you
the
get your
Gospel
hand
of
point to the
Mark-
page. Mark
Okay, go to
what?
Mark. When
Hold
the
on.
soldiers,
Hold on.
please, when the gospel, let me see, in the Gospel of Mark, when the soldiers came upon him in the garden when he was praying, did not a naked man run out of, somewhere that a naked man ran?
Okay,
I mean, I
well,
can
here's
go
the
look
deal.
at it.
That happens at every football game. Okay, it's clear that in the NFL. So,
Okay.
you can see that on any given Sunday. You can see that.
They deflated the
So,
footballs too.
Mark-
Brojo, you know what I'm
Mark
talking
what?
about, right? In the Gospel of Mark, when the soldiers came upon him in the garden, did not a naked man run out from somewhere?
Is this the Mark we have in our Bible? Because you
Yes,
mentioned
the
another,
Mark-
you
Are we-
mentioned
are we
another
talking
gospel,
King
Mark.
James?
Right. They did find an extension to that called the Secret Gospel of Mark, where they do establish the fact that Jesus was gay. It's like, what do you say? It's not a canonical scripture. It was just discovered in the 50s. The Secret Gospel of Mark.
Okay, I don't think there's any Brokeback Mountain stuff going on, so I think we're clear with that.
Well, they had to find an explanation of the man running naked in the
Well,
Gospel.
why do you say it's clear about that? Where do you get the idea? Where is the proof that he's straight?
Mary
Right,
Magdalene.
and none of the
true.
none of the other gospels are clear about anything. They're 100 or so years
Well, the
after
law,
the fact. So
I-
why would we say that it's clear about his sexuality? Would be
one would think
least-
that if you created the law, that you would live the law. If you're telling people they have to live the law, if you want to get through the pearly gates, so you just kind of got to make the leap.
Well,
Right.
he was saying that the law isn't that important. That was some of his message, and that you need to just treat each other decently was his message. So
I don't even know that
Yeah,
he actually exists. I mean, I don't think we really have any hard evidence that he actually did even exist,
True.
much less that we might know his sexuality. I mean,
True.
that seems as
But-
we criticize Christians for claiming that this is an accurate account of the crucifixion and the resurrection and all that, and then we come along and say, oh well, here you go, so and so said he was gay, therefore that's got to be true. Well, I mean, I think it's a little bit of a double standard.
well, it's like Dumbledore in the Harry Potter series. The author, I forgot her name now, said later on that, oh yeah, he was gay, but you wouldn't really have guessed necessarily by the things that were said in the story.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what they said about the Uncle Lion in Lion King.
Interesting. Well, Jesus and Dumbledore and the Uncle Lion and Lion King could have been gay.
Well, we know more about Dumbledore than we knew about
That's true. Okay, but listen, why does it matter to the believer that Christ must be straight? Anyone?
I have no idea.
I don't know. The Bible addresses homosexuality. I can't think he sent his son out there and his son. And now you're asking me I got to get through Jesus if he's disobeying the laws? I don't know. You got
Right.
that's a little twisted for
In
the
a
blind.
way, he they said that he. How could you say? Well, Jesus never got mad, right? But I remember in John that he made a whip out of some cords when he went into the temple to clear it out. I mean, Jesus can always stretch the laws. You know what I mean? He can always.
Well, he
break
was
the
really
laws.
after
He
the
could do
money
it.
change. He was really after the money changers. He didn't like that in his house. That's what he
Yes.
was.
He sure as hell wasn't turning the other
Whipping around.
cheek.
Yeah, there's like
Listen,
Kung
sometimes
said,
you got to do a cleanup. That's called tough love. Here's the law. This is what I asked you to do.
Like the flood.
Hello.
Fuck it. You guys
That's
fucked
right.
up.
That
Done with
Nephilim
this
shit.
Yeah.
You know, when you came down from
Weapons of mass
heaven and you
destruction.
started with the, well, you start messing with the sons of the daughter or the daughters of man, and you know you got to do a cleanup.
okay.
You know, it was a little experiment at that time. You know, you make the sun, the moon, the stars. You throw a couple of
Okay.
people on the planet. Stuff goes awry.
All right.
Quick cleanup on aisle 666.
Exactly.
We know the stories.
That was
But I'm
great.
trying okay, you become a Christian, right? And you want to believe it and start. Is there any deal breakers that you would come across? Aestus, would there be any like deal breakers you think a Christian could encounter by reading the Bible, getting the whole story? She might have left. Okay,
No.
anyone? I'll leave it up to the floor.
I say no.
Here, I'm looking for the naked man
Well,
here.
no, people.
I
people,
say no.
people leave Christianity all the time. You mean like what would make them leave that they might read the Bible? Maybe the slavery stuff. Maybe
Right.
the anti-gay stuff.
Anti-women.
And yeah, I've heard this wasn't my story, but I've heard any number of people. Matt Dillahunty talks about how he wanted to become a minister, and he wanted to fully understand the Bible and prove God, and in so reading, he came to the conclusion that it was absolutely false. So I think there are lots of deal breakers in the Bible for lots of people.
You know, I have to. One thing that I've found, and you guys might have different experiences about this, but particularly with people who have broken indoctrination, it's not necessarily inconsistencies in the stories or the
Right.
allegories or whatever, but rather it's a desire or maybe a guiding principle or something that they want to know what they believe in is true. You know, I can see people who they have a minimal amount of evidence that they will accept. The rest is faith. I don't think if a person like that reads the Bible, it's going to have any effect on them whatsoever. I think that there has to be something within them that is going to say, you know, is this stuff really true? Before it's going to substantially change it.
Well, and most people don't live in a bubble, so yeah, I don't think that reading the Bible, probably in the case of Matt Dillahunty or anybody else, was the sole reason why they left Christianity. But most of us don't live in a vacuum, and we are exposed to all kinds of ideas, including skepticism. So when when you read things, or when things generally in your life don't add up, even though you want to believe them, you want to believe your uncle is a great guy or whatever, you find out things. There's disparate pieces of information, and I think it probably is for thinking people a cumulative effect, whereby. And maybe you'll live with that contradiction for your whole life and never really acknowledge it. But a lot of people, it does bubble up. You can't really unlearn things. So I don't think there's a single factor. But I think reading the Bible probably, if somebody had the smallest amount of skepticism, reading some of these fairy tales and things like that, and trying to make sense of it would probably lead you farther away from believing that it's true than if not. And
Well, I don't know too many people think that would take it as a literal, take it in its most literal form. I think.
Well, you haven't been on Google Plus very long.
Well, some people are just.
There's a lot of people.
There are a lot of people who take it very literally. Yeah, it surprised me too. I mean, my exposure to Christianity was always very mild, and they were parables and stuff, and it's really about loving your neighbor and this kind of thing. No, there are quite a number of people who defend this literally, and I have to say, if I thought it were true, I would I think the only justification would be whether it was literal or not. I mean, people tell you all the time, read the Bible, you'll find out this or that, and it's.
Are you a good little Catholic boy, Jeff?
I was not brought up. No, I was not brought up Catholic. My parents were Protestant. They were Presbyterian, and they to my father's dying day, he died 3 years ago. He claimed to be a Presbyterian, but it was never really a big part of my upbringing, and I was not really indoctrinated that much in it, and so I think I've been able to keep a pretty safe distance from it, and a pretty objective way of looking at it.
Look how many people believe in Noah's Ark. They actually believe that shit.
Yeah. Oh, and I've been on here arguing about people who believe the flood happens.
Okay, but they found the Ark.
Huh? What?
They found the Ark.
I actually posted a link in the chat about a half an hour ago on biblical archaeology.
They might have found an Ark, but the idea of what supposedly happened with the Ark and on the Ark,
I offer it as information.
Is so silly.
There's no Ark in archaeology.
All right.
I like that one.
Brojo, did you find that verse? Because my tablet is so slow. I haven't cracked my Bible open in about 6 months, and it's just freaking downloading everything. Did you find that verse?
Yeah, I put it in the chat there. It's 14, 51.
And you say that, okay, just could you explain to our audience what interpolations are, please?
Well, there's two words there, body and his, which were, they're not in the original manuscript, so they're put in there from later writers or scribes.
Well, okay, original manuscripts. There's really no such thing as
well,
original
yeah, well, you know what I mean, yeah. There is no original.
Interpolation is taking pieces of data and filling in the blanks.
Okay.
Hopefully accurately, but some way trying to make sense of random pieces of information.
That's a secular explanation, but in the religious explanation,
extrapolation is the opposite.
Right, but in the religious thing, it means we're like scribes later on added to the text, or somebody.
Well, like Jeff was saying, they probably read it, something was missing, so he probably meant this and put the word in there, yeah.
Right.
So it's like if one Star Trek episode they said they can only go warp 6, and then in another episode they say warp 8, you would be interpolating to say, well, they had some special thing, or they changed the way they measure warp drive, or something like that. You would just whatever you would insert would be interpolating that those seemingly disparate pieces of information.
Now, the reason that's important, Michael, is because people want to get as close to what is original to the Bible. You understand? So when somebody says, well, this is interpolation, they're saying that was something added after the fact. You follow that thinking?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So people, you always hear people arguing over Scripture. Is this an interpolation or is not? Right. See, that's one point of argument that they'll argue over, meaning and interpolation.
Yeah, it's like reverse engineering, basically. And where it becomes a problem when somebody has an agenda and they want it to mean something, so they try to make these connections that may not be justified. Right.
It's like their own slant.
Right.
The other very important thing about
I'm sorry. As you read
sorry,
it, and I'm reading the 51 through 52. If you read it, you'd say to yourself, "These guys are sleeping together." But I don't know that sleeping exactly means sex, and just because someone's naked doesn't infer that. And it's not uncommon if you're out in the bush and you've got nothing, you're going to lay together to keep bodily warmth.
See, what you're doing now is called apologetics, Michael.
It's not apologetics. It's just what I understand.
It's called apologetics is when they try to make a rationale to the meaning of the plain text.
You asked me,
it was a matter of survival.
Well,
there were gay people back then, I'm sure, and maybe if there was such a person as Jesus, maybe he was gay. I don't know.
One of the things too every time
maybe they would have described it.
Every time the Bible says
or
the person knows someone, it means they had sex with them.
Yes,
to know the person.
that's a biblical one.
Well, they do. I don't know that that means that every time, but they do use that terminology.
Yes.
The biblical. What is it? Carnal knowledge.
Carnal knowledge.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Hank, you know what? I just thought of something here. Do you know that so they had the Council of Nicaea. Constantine had the Council of Nicaea and said, okay, we're going to get along. We're going to determine what stories are in the Bible, and they excluded some. And one of them, if I remember correctly, I'm probably wrong about this, was the book of Esau, which was an early story, and it had Jesus shoving a kid off a roof. Anybody remember any of that?
Well, go ahead, Sean. I mean, there's lots of non-canonical stories,
Right.
gospel that they've left out.
I don't know if it was Esau, but I think it was not the Gospel of Thomas, but it was the early life of Jesus according to Thomas or something like that. I think it was written by Thomas.
There
And
you go.
apparently, yeah, it kind of talks about Jesus in his youth, and he would do kind of strange things like make things of clay and birds out of clay, and he'd make them fly. He even got into an argument with another young boy, struck him dead, and then rose him from the dead.
Take that,
I
motherfucker!
love it. I know, really.
Yeah.
Okay, bring it back.
Yeah, some really unique stories. And apparently, this is a part of tradition in Western India. You know,
Anyway,
if they're gonna-
there's lots of stories that got
If they're
tossed.
good, but what I'm saying is when these Romans got together and they said we're going to determine what are we putting in
Right.
and what are we leaving out. It's not far fetched that they're like, okay, you know this one where he's getting gay with this other guy.
yeah.
Let's put that on the back burner for now.
Let's go
You
ahead.
might not want that
save it.
one. Yeah.
You're having a very good point there, Pyong, that things that they couldn't really work out in the harmony of the Jesus story, they left aside.
Yeah, well,
Right.
you have the Council of Nicaea happening like 325 AD, something like that. So
Yeah,
By-
we'd call them
by-
Byzantines, but they'd call themselves Romans. Go ahead.
yeah, so by then, I mean, you had all sorts of stories going on about who Jesus was, different
Right.
beliefs, different gospels going on. And from what I remember, the council there, I think there was like 180 bishops that were invited to the council,
Okay.
and there were many others that weren't or just couldn't even afford to go there. So there was, some prejudice, I would say, it seems.
Some
when it
bias.
came to-
Well, the thing
Yeah.
that I remember that these guys were arguing, and Constantine, parked an army outside the, wherever they were meeting, and so those guys made up their mind that, hey, the ruler here isn't fooling around. He wants us to come to a decision. And so, he had to push those guys to get it out the door, the finished product. And,
yeah.
I mean, it is what it
helps,
is.
It helps to rule the empire, right? If you have some kind of
Yeah, right. He wanted to use the Christianity as a state religion, and he got his wish, right? Now, today, we have a much more, what would you say, intricate society. Would you not agree than ancient society? I mean, we have all sorts of ideas and flavors shooting at us from all over the globe. Does it matter that these ancient stories are as robust as our own society? Really? I mean, isn't it great that it's sort of, you can read things into the Bible still? Isn't it an aid? Or we have to mirror, does the believer believe that he has to mirror their society, against these ancient societies? Anyone?
I don't know. I still don't get really the question. It seems like a couple different questions.
Okay, the
in
question
there.
is this. Okay, the question is that when we read the New Testament, we're reading about an ancient society, how to behave in an ancient society. Should the believer try to live a Christ-like life totally like an ancient, like Jesus did? Try to be in an ancient society mindset when he's, being a believer in the 21st century?
Yeah, I don't know, Bunto. Again, it comes.
Okay, I mean,
Try
Would
to
you-
live.
Was Jesus a fanatic? How about that? Was he a fanatic? Was he a troublemaker?
I think he was a precise individual.
I mean, did he have
he was a type A personality.
Well, yeah. I mean,
oh, he definitely was stirring up trouble here. I mean, you know, you got the Jews and specific, I guess, the Pharisees and the scribes are going to definitely have an issue with Jesus because here he is coming. Hey, you know, you don't need to follow these these laws. It's pretty simple. You have a direct line to God, and then you stir stuff with the Romans too. Here he is, you know, people proclaiming him the King of Kings, and you know this kind of thing, and that ain't going to fly with the Caesar.
Right. Now, Michael said that the guy was a type A personality, right? Jesus. I don't see him as like a head of a corporation. Do you guys? I mean, it's hard to say Jesus is like, you know, somehow aligned with, you know, the mainstream of his society. Wouldn't you agree? I mean, he was like on a mission, you know, kind of radical.
Yeah, he was on a mission. You know, he was like a special ops kind of dude. And he had special ops kind of tricks.
Okay, Jesus was a renegade, right?
No, a renegade, this is more like a sniper.
He's a sniper.
Like a Captain America type guy.
All right. How is... Okay.
He's on a mission. He's on a mission.
I heard someone say recently, Indiana Jesus.
All right. Like, how is... I mean, I don't picture Jesus as like a crime fighter per se.
Listen,
sort of like
Jesus
an
didn't hit
anti-hero.
he didn't hit the planet and, you know, go down and find Key West and, you know, sit in the sunset and put his toes in the sand. He had a mission. He had a job. Revelation is a fulfillment. It's not a prediction of what's going to happen. It's a fulfillment. I don't know much, but I know that.
Okay.
So he's got a plan.
I'll give you all that, Mike. I'll give you all that. I'll give you all that. Liu Pyong, does the Jesus story make sense to you? I mean, what this guy was trying to do? Or is he just a troublemaker?
No, not a bit. I mean, does it make sense to me? No, it doesn't make sense to me.
I mean, how would you characterize Jesus? Just, you know, on a suicide mission or what?
Well, let's see.
On his way to getting himself killed.
It depends entirely upon, like, every individual has their own interpretation of, you know, they have what they believe they've put together as their God, they put together their religion, they put together a picture of what they think Jesus is. Michael Ann thinks Jesus is a sniper. I think other people would characterize him as like a peace bringer, you know, and those are almost diametrically opposed. So
well,
I
a
think
sniper in the sense that he is focused and singularly minded in accomplishment of what he needs to get done in order to get to fulfillment.
Killing people.
It's not about killing people.
Okay.
But people
anyway.
do die along the way. What can I tell you? Collateral damage.
Yeah, fuck them. Collateral damage.
Well, anyway, keep going, Pyong. Just, you know.
Yeah, so it just depends on the person. You know, I've heard sermons from people where they say Jesus is a peacemaker and, you know, all this other stuff, and yeah, I guess it just depends on, you know, it's their it's just a way for them to express their manifestation of what they find virtuous, and I think that's great. So, whatever. To me, you know, no, of course it doesn't make any sense, but it's all right.
Yeah, you have scriptures where Jesus said, "I didn't come to bring peace, but to bring a sword."
Right.
Yeah.
And Luke, he was a real Terminator. Okay, kids, does it make sense
He's
what
talking about Sodom and Gomorrah. He went down and he freaking cleaned house.
Well, I don't think he killed anybody in Sodom and Gomorrah. That was the Old Testament.
Kill anybody, but he surely did bring down some major hellfire and brimstone. And
that's an Old Testament story.
Yeah.
Okay, kids, does it make sense to you what Pyong said about people reading into whatever flavor Jesus they want?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, so like it's okay for me and you to have a gay Jesus, you know, kind of our hero.
I guess so. I mean, the whole thing is open for interpretation anyway. I mean, the whole book.
Right.
Both testaments, they're both open to interpretation. There's no way people can say, well, it absolutely is this, absolutely. I don't know, unless they were able to have a time machine and go back to you know, it's open to interpretation. Just like novels are open to interpretation. Just like movies are open to interpretation.
Okay, is this by design, Kiz, or is this just the way it has to be with the Bible and religion?
It's not by design. It's just the way it turned out.
Like, if it was all organized, then we'd only have, like, you know, maybe 1 or 2 types of Christianity, right? Instead of like 300.
If the Bible had been written in modern languages from the start, we'd have a different thing going on. But it's when anything that is translated that many times is going to be open to interpretation, especially since, I mean, there's times, like if you look at the Wycliffe Bible, you'll find some different things there than you find in, like, the King James and beyond.
Yeah,
so many versions that we have right now are still based off of the King James. They don't bother going with any other versions. There's some that they've tried to go back, but those versions aren't. I can't even remember what they're called now. But back to earlier translations than King James. But you don't hear about them very much.
Okay, like if we had to go to church, we'd go to a gay church, right? Where they have LGBT, they'd be very tolerant, accepting, and they wouldn't hammer all the Levitical laws and the stuff in Romans.
A lot of them are Universalist Unitarian, so they don't even necessarily follow the Bible fully. So I mean, not even they're like really open.
Okay, Michael, would it upset you to go to a gay church?
Nope.
Well, why not?
Not on my radar for being a bother. I don't judge anybody. I don't have a concept that's right or that's wrong. It's not on my radar. I don't care what you are. Don't care what you look like, who you think about. If you lay to the east, pray to frogs, I could give a crap.
Brojo.
Matter to me.
Brojo, could you go to a gay church, or would you say stop the music?
I don't even go to church, or a Christian church.
Let's say, you had some gay friends and they said, we're going to get married at a gay church. Would you go or would you not go?
Go.
I'd go. They're my friends. They get married. Of course I'm going to go,
Now, you couldn't
Bunto, your friend calls you, says, I met her. I met the one. Come, we're getting married. It's Friday night. Meet me there. And you show up, and it's a German Shepherd. You going?
Oh, you mean it's a dog? Well, probably not.
Okay, just checking.
I stop at anything outside of the species. But I thought you were going to say something like, if it was like an Islamic church, maybe I'd have trouble. Well, a mosque. Maybe I'd, feel kind of weird going to a mosque.
I draw the line at someone who cannot clearly and distinctly consent.
Yeah.
Right. It's obviously invalidates animals or anything outside of our species. Okay, would you go to a mosque, Michael Ann?
Yeah, I think I would. I'd like to check that out, see what they're talking about.
You got to wear a burqa.
Here's the deal. It's all the same guy.
Keep your mouth shut, woman.
That's out.
Stand far
That's
back.
That's out.
No, that's a mosque.
Okay, well, that's out.
How about for your friend's wedding?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
I would still dress the way I normally do. I would still act the way I normally do. And if they don't want me there, then they can tell me to leave.
But that's the deal, Kiz. You got it right on the nose. I show up as I am, who I am, and how I am.
But
you don't like it, don't figure it out.
Kiz, you don't get dressed.
Let me tell you something. If the Pope showed
Well, I mean, I sit there. You've seen my normal outfits and stuff. I don't dress very standard. I dress kind of provocative, and no, I don't go around naked. I don't go around shirtless most of the time, unless it's outside during the middle of summer or something. But I wouldn't really change anything about myself. And if they say, hey, you need to leave because of the way you look, then I'd be like, okay, bye.
Would you guys kiss the Pope's ring?
No.
No.
Fuck no.
Hee. Yep. See, that's out. Don't do men in dresses.
Is that the way you looked at it, Pyong? A guy in a dress, the Pope?
No, he's not a guy in a dress, but I mean, I'm not going to use his ring.
You don't
Well, I
honestly
guess he
think
is
he's
wearing
the,
a dress.
you don't honestly think he's the vicar of Christ, do you?
He could be. I don't care.
No, obviously not.
There you go. He's a pedophile Nazi socializer.
I think you're one back.
You know, this stuff
They
about...
both are. They both are.
I'm sorry, the stuff about how I wouldn't change anything for a friend. I went to an Episcopalian funeral. I remained quiet. I wore a suit, which I don't usually wear, but I did that out of respect to my friend. I didn't think that the event was about me, and
Right.
That's how they wanted to be honored. They were apparently more religious than I thought. I actually would have pegged this person as being an atheist, but nonetheless, she got married in this church. They had a ceremony that I thought was probably one of the worst ceremonies I've ever heard, insofar as it had almost nothing to do with the deceased, and they acknowledged that. That's apparently typical of Episcopalian services, but nonetheless, it wasn't about me. I went and I paid respects to her. It was to honor her. It was to honor her life and on her terms, and that's what I did. I dressed, I dressed in ways that I wouldn't normally dress, and I listened to hymns. I didn't really sing them because I'm not really a good singer, but I really wouldn't have objected to doing that. So I think you do.
Listen, all roads lead to Rome anyway, so who cares? You know what I mean? It doesn't matter whether you're, it's all the same God.
Okay, so when there's a particular church
that's
you
not
go
my-
to.
Like now, would you go into a high Hasidic? See, it's different for men than it is for women, but I would. I think that would be really cool.
I recognize that it is different for women, but I don't know that under some of these religions men are treated all that well either.
No, but
So,
you would never throw a man in a burqa and all that other sort of stuff.
That's true. Those ancient religions are patriarchal based.
They all
You're
are.
a modern day woman, right, Michael? So you want to go to a modern day womanish church instead of one of these real throwbacks where they have the woman, put down, has to wear something on her head.
No, I don't. I see no difference between man and woman. We just do things differently.
Yeah, but you see, these people are going by sacred scripture, and they do indicate, the males are dominant in the Bible.
Okay, well, he'd have a tough time coming home to dinner, wouldn't he?
Well, the thing is that he has scriptural authority. See, Michael? So
He might, but it just as like Dr. Oz says when they ask him, does he vaccinate? And he says, yes, I got myself vaccinated, and I say everybody should be vaccinated. And they said, well, are your children vaccinated? And he says, well, I am Dr. Oz to the rest of the world, but when I go home, my wife makes those decisions, and no, my children are not vaccinated.
Wow, weird.
That's
What
what
a
I'm talking
retard.
about.
Are you serious?
That's what happens, Daddy's always got to come home to dinner. so some of that shit lightens up.
I would just I agree that women are even more unfairly singled out in a lot of these cults, but everybody in general is singled out. The Episcopalians believe that we're born with original sin. They believe that death is a good thing. I think those are abhorrent things, and I had to grit my teeth throughout part of the
ceremony.
But on balance.
Yeah, but you can't take it personally.
I took one for. Well, I didn't because I think it's false and I think it's nonsense. I don't take it personally, but I think.
Now, I would never go to like a Wiccan thing or a satanic thing if somebody said, "Look, I've been a Wiccan all my life, and you're my best friend, and we're going to be jumping into the Pentagon."
I think
That's
from what I understand, Wiccans aren't really much worse than any other cult.
Why not Wiccan though? I mean, what's bad about Wiccan? I can see maybe if there is actually something satanic that's based on the same type of Satanism you might find, let's say, in the Bible or something like that, with references or stuff in the Bible. But if it's more of the Wiccan or pagan kind of thing now, what would be wrong with that?
It's just not my gig.
Okay.
Well, are you afraid of satanic possession?
None of it's our gig. I just told you that Episcopalianism was not my gig, but my friend.
But there's a line. There's rungs of the ladder for this.
I agree, but I wouldn't draw the.
But
line.
Episcopalian or whatever all those others are, it's all the same shit.
To me, modern Wiccanism isn't that bad, and the Christian God, he isn't so great in a lot of areas either. So,
Michael, I want to address something you said there before, which I think you're going to find, especially you're going to have a problem with a lot of Christians, where you said that all roads lead to Rome, and it's all the same God, and Christians will adamantly disagree with you because straight out, Jesus says, "I'm the way, the truth, and the life to the Father, but by me."
What is going on?
Those kind of things.
Hey, bro, Joe, you sound like you're playing in Parliament Funkadelic. I
don't know what he's doing, but he's killing me.
Kind of weird.
Yeah, your audio's terrible.
It's like George Clinton's kind.
It's like we're getting, a ghost box or something.
A P-Funk. That's okay. Okay, so Michael said that all roads lead to Cleveland. All roads lead to Rome.
Well, here's the deal. When I was 40, my aunts woke up and decided I needed to go to Medjugorje. Now, I don't even know what Medjugorje is, but it turns out a place where the Blessed Mother comes, like Fatima and like Lourdes. Long story short, a lot of crazy things went on that I can explain and things that I can't explain. But those things were for me, not for me to tell you about them. You want to go? Figure it out. It's a cool place. So in any event, I used to say to my grandmother, who was a big Mary fan, I mean, as things go, Mary, 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 Mary. Every year we had to do a Blessed Mary celebration, the whole 9 yards. And I said to her grandmother, what is with Mary? And she said, Michael, Jesus can't listen to everybody. He doesn't have time, but he will listen to his mother. And so, okay, so just also that was her gig. It worked for her beautifully. She's in heaven. She's where she wants to be. Whatever, and so everybody's got their way to Rome, but all roads are there. In my world, so it's either is there a God or isn't there a God, and how you look at it.
Okay. Well, let's get one thing at a time. Okay, Pyong. Does that sort of make sense to you as far as like, hey, this works. I'm not going to change it. The Mary thing, it works, so that's good enough for me.
Well, again, it's what I was saying before.
Well, it worked for her.
Still, hold on. It's what I was saying before is true. It's whether or not that person was really concerned about whether it was true or not. I mean, if it makes them feel good and they want to believe it, whatever. Whether or not does it work? Obviously, I mean, clearly, I don't believe any of that stuff even exists. So there's no utility to it whatsoever beyond what somebody derives from it within their own brain. If it gives them comfort or whatever, that sort of thing. But yeah, I don't see any problem with what you said.
Bro, Joe, is that where you're coming from?
Me personally, yeah. I mean, I think everybody needs to find their own way, their own path, whatever works for you. But what I was trying to say before, I was a bit outside, that's why I got broken up. What I was trying to say to Michael is that in her statement about saying all roads lead to Rome, and it's one God, that she's going to find, especially amongst these hangouts with other Christians, that's no, that's not the case. Jesus said, "I'm the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but by me." And scriptures like that, where you need to believe in Jesus to know God at all. There are no other ways.
You follow that, Michael?
I'm sorry. In my world, it's a given. If you're going to get to the Father, you will come through Him. It's automatic. It's like third base. You want to get home, kids? You will hit third base, right?
Broja?
Just going off of what you said before, Michael. How all roads lead to Rome, and there's one God, and I mean, I agree with you there. I'm just saying other Christians were gonna, especially fundamentalist, literalist Christians, are gonna adamantly disagree, and I think most of Christianity.
Kind of like shocked because when I got to Medjugorje and everything was about Mary, 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 I thought, holy smokes, Mary's kind of tough to float. It's tough to get Jesus to float. So I'm thinking to myself, this is really crazy. Well, by the end of the experience, her deal is him. It's all about him. All roads lead to Rome. I don't care if you're leaning on a carpet. I don't care if you got curly things hanging off your sideburns. I don't care if you're on your knees eating.
You know, there's
the thing that kind of there's one thing I want to interject first. It's like, how come more Christians aren't like Michael Brojo? Tell me how come that there has to be hardcore fundamentalism.
I guess the more you read your Bible, the more you become a fundy, or you either just won't believe. So.
So could there have been a chance that you would have been even more fundamentalist instead of just giving up?
I was pretty fundy for a while there, Bunto. Yeah, I looked at the world like I looked at people. You were saved or you were unsaved. You were of God, or if you weren't Christian, you were, deceived by the devil.
Okay. And then you sort of got out of that, right? You just sort of said, hey, listen, there's, I just can't, the whole thing caved in, right? Collapsed.
Yeah, I was challenged, and I wanted to be honest with myself, and I, went and reread and stuff like that, and came to terms with it. Yeah, it was a 2-year process for me.
All right. Now,
see, I think the difference between me, Bunto, and everybody else is I'm working backwards. Everybody else is trying to get there. I'm already there. I'm just looking at the stuff I should have looked at along the way.
Okay. Okay, so that means you already accept that you've already on the right track. You're already doing everything right? That's what you're telling me?
I'm trying to be the best I can, so when the time comes, my ass sits on the mercy seat, and he says, "Good girl, you did what I asked you to do." Okay. And then when I have to jump on the judgment seat, I'm not sitting there too long, and I'm walking around heaven. That's the mission.
Okay, some people have to be like, they have to get like some sort of sign from God. So you're already there, or you don't need that?
I've had plenty. I've had more than I care to tell you about.
Okay, so you already got the revelation with God. You already got the communication going, and so you're just working yourself back.
I think only came to me once. Everything else has been his influence.
Okay.
But I only heard him once.
Okay, you heard the guy once.
I heard something that was whatever it was. I don't even. I was 17 years old. I wasn't looking for anything to tell me anything. I was in a panic, and I could not get my shit together, and I had to get my shit together, and I couldn't.
Okay, right. Okay. So 17. Right now, if you wanted to say, "Hey, God, I need to hear you tonight," could that happen?
I don't think so.
Okay, why not?
It's frivolous and unnecessary.
Okay, why do you say it's frivolous and unnecessary? To establish the fact that you do have communication with God.
Because I think he knows in my heart of hearts I don't need him here. I don't need him to show me that. You may need to see it, but I don't.
You can only assume that, you see. That's a kind of
I can only go by my experience, and I've had several experiences as a registered nurse in the first hour of life and the last hour of life. It is not something everybody gets to see. And it's a spiritual event, and there's shit that goes on I can't even explain to you.
Okay, you see you said that you were already there and you were working yourself backwards, right? Well, that leads one to believe that you're already grown as much as you're going to grow.
No. I understand the mission. I've understood the mission without. I know what the mission is, and I'm on the path for the mission. I'm just now filling in the historical gaps, whatever, the informational gaps, whatever.
So, if I can, we all know that end of life is a really intense experience, and that it probably releases a lot of endorphins and a lot of chemicals in us that intensify the experience. But what did you see in those end of life experiences that you thought could not be explained naturally, or could not be explained by the intensity of the emotions and stuff like that? What did you see that was really unworldly or stuff that you couldn't otherwise account for?
There's a gentleman that walked into my office about 4.5 years ago. He had brain cancer, primary glioblastoma. They'd been into his head about 3 times. It kept growing back.
Mm-hmm.
He walked into my office. I happen to have a picture of something that I caught at Medjugorje. It's just sitting on my mantle. I have a fireplace in my office. And he walks in the door, and he looks at it. He says nothing to me about it. And his wife is with him. And he said, Michael Ann, they gave me 3 weeks to live. And I said to him, well, I don't know about that, Mark, but whatever it is God has in store for you, I can't stop. But what I can make sure is that you're going to be well cared for by the time you go. Okay, so about, I'd say, 18 months later, he's doing beautifully until such time as he begins to not do beautifully anymore.
Mm-hmm.
In his end days, he was pretty much a vegetable. He was not communicative. He could not move. He did not respond to pain. There was no one there.
Right.
But there was life there. He had a good, strong heartbeat. He was breathing beautifully. His body ran like a top. He wasn't breaking down. He just was not there. Who knows whether he could hear or he could not hear because he did not respond to commands. On the day that they came to decide to do these nutritional treatments, his wife asked me about the picture on the windowsill because she recognized it. They had been to Medjugorje.
Mm-hmm.
So as soon as he saw the picture, he looked at her and he said, this is where we're going to be. Now, at the end of his life, gathered around, and I'm at the bedside because I kept going over every day, he is laying in bed, totally still. Everybody tapes the rosary in Medjugorje. It's just the most beautiful thing you've ever heard. It's just a gorgeous song. Forget about whether you believe in what it says, but it's just beautiful to listen to.
Yeah.
And they played that for him at his bedside.
Yeah.
He talked about Mary worse than my grandmother did. Mary, 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 Mary. And, you know, Medjugorje to him was just the bomb.
Mm-hmm.
So sure enough, at the time of his death, he literally opens his eyes, leans 3/4 of the way up into an upright position.
Mm-hmm.
His arms are outstretched. He has a look of peace and love on his face that I cannot describe to you. He takes a deep breath, a sigh as if you had seen your child, and he laid right back down in the same peaceful position he started, and off he went. I don't know what that man saw. I don't know what, I have no idea what that was about. I don't care if there was shit running through his brain and gave him a dream. I don't know if he saw, you know, a naked woman. I don't know what the hell he saw.
But to you it was pretty
I gotta tell
extraordinary,
you, the power, the energy, the sensation about the transition and the divinity of the human in its spiritualness at that moment.
That was a good depiction of that.
Okay, well
let
me ask you this. Pyong,
and I don't know anybody that turns into an atheist at the time of death.
Well, I'll tell you what.
But that's not.
Yeah, go ahead.
That's not entirely. Yeah,
doesn't it make sense to you now, religion and Christianity, what Michael just described? You got to have peace in your life, right? At the end, doesn't it make sense?
Well, it was a nice story, but I mean, without the initial baseline doctrination, none of that would, you know, that seems like a manifestation or justification of the indoctrination that she was probably exposed to at an early age. So, yeah, it's you know, and like she said, she doesn't know what happened there. Something she felt something, and I'm sure she did. I mean, if you're a human being and you have empathy, that's a very powerful moment for people. So
and I actually first of all I don't see that I'm not an expert, but I don't see that there was anything that went against science or anything in this case. But I think one of the things we have to watch out for is that we as humans are sort of pattern-seeking beings, and we try to attribute meaning and maybe universal explanations for things, or things that give more significance to our experiences. And I can see that we're particularly maybe vulnerable to that at an end-of-life situation. So it was a wonderful story. I personally didn't feel like it described something that was outside of the bounds of science or statistical anomalies or anything like that. But it was a moving story, and I do appreciate your sharing.
Okay, Michael Ann, you can see how an atheist thinks, right? That they sort of want something a little bit more substantial.
Well, I can't I can only tell you my experiences with people who are in that special hour. You can stand in front of somebody who's in an ICU, they're on a ventilator, they got the ECMO machine for the heart. There's every piece of equipment that we have. And the patient is doing beautifully.
Are
And
you
you
ever
can't-
curious,
and you-
Michael, to why an atheist thinks the way they do?
No, I waste
Why
not
not?
10 seconds.
Why not?
It has no bearing on my life. It matters not to me. If you wanted to believe in snakes, I'd still like you. And I certainly wouldn't try to convert you.
So are things?
I'd wonder. I'd ask you about
So
it. I think
what-
it was pretty,
what,
out
what-
there. But
so just-
it's not my... Some
Just-
of us
just-
are called, the rest of us are sent. And sent means to speak about, not to convert or wonder why. I think it's the height of arrogance.
So can I ask, is your standard of judgment simply what it means to your life, or do you have any regard for the truth? And if so, how does the truth measure up? So there's a lot of things that could be
No,
true or false.
I have a very big regard for the truth. I'm like crime dog when it comes to the truth. But
Okay.
I don't.
But not all things that are true have a bearing on your personal life, I would imagine, correct?
Well, I don't know what to feel about an atheist, to be quite honestly about you. An atheist to me is somebody that doesn't believe in God.
I'm not asking about atheism, but you continually say I don't this or that isn't important because it doesn't affect me personally, and I just was wondering if you think truth is important, even if there are some things in life that are important, even if they don't immediately affect your personal life. So you were casting your experience with atheists. You're not at all curious about why people think a certain way because it doesn't affect your personal life. So
I have to tell you, I until these Google Hangouts, I don't know that I've ever had a conversation with an atheist.
I'll bet you have.
If I didn't, it didn't come up. You know what I mean? Most of the people I know
I don't
know
usually
what
bring
I
it up
know.
either. I don't usually bring it up either unless somebody else brings up something related. But I guarantee
Everybody
you've
I
talked
know
to lots
believes
of
in God.
atheists.
I don't know very many atheists, to tell you the truth. As a matter of fact, I'm going to start questioning my friends.
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe in God? That'll be one of my next questions.
Okay, would that
I'd
matter?
be surprised.
No, it wouldn't matter. Now, if you told me you were into Satan, you're gone.
Okay, Satan is a bad guy.
You're off like a palm dress.
Love it.
So to
Okay,
me,
Michael.
Satan is another imaginary character. I don't.
Well, here's
know.
the deal. If there's good, there's evil. So we give him a name. That's him. He's one of those angels that got kicked out of heaven or whatever.
Why do you say if there's good, there's evil?
Because you got to have one or the other. There's got to be an equal and opposite reaction and all
Well,
that
that's
stuff.
basically a restatement of your original statement. But why do you think if there's good, there has to be evil?
I don't know. You need an opposite, I guess.
Okay.
That's how things work. Positive
There's
and
no
negative.
monopoles for morality.
I'm not thinking.
No, yeah, there are. Oh, yeah.
There are. Okay, go ahead, John.
Establishing that everything needs an opposite and an equal, I think, is false. That's not how the world works. That's not how reality works. There are no Batmen, but if there were, they wouldn't all need Jokers. I mean, there's the illusion, or maybe not the illusion, but the perception, if you're within a cyclic system, that yes, there's summer and there's winter, but that's just the perception that you have because you exist within a cyclic system. We have an Earth, but is there another Earth? Is there a bizarro world? Of course not.
Well, there's
Lou,
God.
Welcome
And
to
then
the
there's
Hangout,
Satan.
Lou. Let me ask my friend Lou something real quick. Lou, gay Jesus, does it matter?
Well, it doesn't matter, but he was obviously gay.
Please extrapolate. How is he obviously gay? What was his giveaway?
Well, he traveled around and was flirting with all the fishermen on the docks.
God.
Oh boy.
There
we go.
You need Jesus to come in you, right?
Yes, they do say he has to feel you.
Okay, well, all right. And we want to talk about Satanism right now. Lou, why
All right,
wouldn't
well,
you go to
I'm
a
out.
satanic ceremony?
Why won't I?
Why wouldn't you go to a satanic wedding just to see what's going on?
Well, from what I hear about, from what I hear about the two kinds of Satanism, I probably would go just for the party.
Yeah, the after party would be good.
Well,
all right.
If I knew the people and that they were peaceful people and all that, I would go. I would equate it with like going to a Halloween party where there are people dressed up like witches and devils and all that stuff, and it's all for fun and candy and maybe partying a little bit. I would think it was a hoot. It would probably be something I would go to and enjoy and talk about for a long time. If I thought people were using Satan or any other fictional character to justify atrocities or killing people, then I absolutely would. I would not support it or participate in it at all. I
really have not known any Satanists, or somebody who's just come to, except Brojo, except nobody's come up to me and said, well, hey, I'm a Satanist. So I couldn't party with any Satanists, unfortunately.
I have to admit I'm confused because the Satanists that I talk to, and maybe I'm misunderstanding something, but they'll say, oh, no, we don't worship Satan. And I'll be like, well, then, why do you call yourself
a Satanist?
Would you consider Masons Satanists?
Oh, you mean the Masons, the Freemasons?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know any Freemasons. Tell us about that.
Well, they're very secretive, for one thing. I don't think
they believe that Lucifer is God.
Masons?
My grandfather was a Mason, and I think he was a Presbyterian. I don't think he believed that. But
it was like a club.
Know. Maybe he was. Maybe he really was secretly worshiping Lucifer. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, if you talk to Cerberus, he's a Mason, and he will tell you that they don't believe Lucifer is God.
Well, isn't he like the enlightened one, the enlightener, and whatnot?
Yeah, who knows? I don't know.
Morning Star. That's
what the light bearer.
I don't know the ins and outs of Masonry, but I've heard some tales.
I just look at all those private male groups like that. It's just kind of clubs for beta males.
They are clubs.
Oh yeah, clubs for beta males though.
Yeah. Beta males. We had type A males, beta males. All right. Well. Okay, we were talking with a believer who said all these things about, she'd go to a synagogue and go to a mosque, but when it came to Satan ceremony, she didn't want to come. And she said that, you're either good or you're either evil. It's a Manichaean setup in her mind.
Yeah,
doesn't that make sense, though? Isn't it an easy way to think, good and evil? Or does that lead you in, down the worst path of thinking? Judging people on good and evil.
Well, Dennett would call that greedy reductionism.
Okay. Go ahead, Lou. Tell us what you know about that sort of simplistic thinking.
Well, it's too simplistic, and because it's too simplistic, that's why it's called greedy reductionism. There is good reductionism, but greedy reductionism is when you take it to the point where you break things down so simple that it's no longer factually accurate.
To binaries, to black and white.
Yeah.
Either or.
Yeah, and we just know that that's not how humans are.
Pyong, does law work that way, or is law very expansive spectrum of gray?
Pardon me, Bunto. Can you restate what your question was?
We're talking about good and evil, that sort of thinking. And I wanted to ask you, does our American law system work that black and white, or is there a lot of gray area in the law?
Boy,
there's room there for the judge to work.
That's a difficult question to answer, Bunto, because I'm not really sure what you're talking about with good and evil. Concepts like good and evil don't come into it. It's all about behavior, about Well, let's just talk. If we can narrow it down to okay, Lyric says yes or no. No. No, fuck you, Bunto.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe.
I'd like to have one of the reasons why we have a concept of good and evil is that we do have good and evil things. If everybody was objectively good, we wouldn't have a concept of evil. So I don't think that evil is necessary, but I think part of the reason we have these concepts is because we do have it. We call some things bad or evil, and we call other things good. So I think it's pretty self-evident that we have those things.
Is there a term?
But I don't think we need evil to have good. That seems to be where I think she was going, and I don't think that's correct.
Right.
Is there a word that means something other than the binary when it concerns a decision? Like, is there a middle? I mean, maybe, I guess, but is there like a defined word that humans use to signify that?
Adequate. Like, I was thinking, like, with Pyong, I think you were going to bring up criminal law, Pyong, like how bad the person committed the crime.
Well,
they give that person adequate sentence.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was thinking.
I think there are things that are outside of ethics. So, like, for example, it's not evil to like chocolate better than vanilla or something like that.
Right.
But the question is, in philosophy or ethics, can you identify some things that are just universally bad for human beings? Human beings are the ones that are doing this search into ethics, and human beings arguably have a heightened need for an ethical system because we don't really have the same kind of instincts as animals. Plus, we have a much greater conceptual faculty and reasoning faculty than animals, so we make a lot more choices, and we have much more of a power to do really widespread good things or widespread bad things. So we seem to have a need for a code of ethics, and I think you can have some, if it's done properly, have some core principles that really address everybody. That we can say that life is like human life is the highest value for human beings. So our ethical system should relate about that, and anything that's detrimental to human life should be opposed to that. And within those basic frameworks, you can certainly have areas that aren't as clear cut. So what about self-defense and stuff like this? But the principles still hold. You're really just applying those principles and saying whether or not this or that is permissible. And with self-defense, for example, I would hold that that is justified to defend yourself against an aggressor when they've initiated aggression against you or whatever. They're threatening your life. So yeah, we can have these principles, but they don't really need to apply to everything as long as you get your chocolate ice cream without stealing from somebody else or killing them. Your preference for ice cream, or in the absence of religion, your sexual preference is a peaceful thing. It involves consenting adults. However, as long as it does it, and you're not forcing anybody, then that we should regard that as good, and we should regard using force against peaceful people as being evil or bad. Evil has this sort of quasi-religious connotation, but nonetheless, there's good and bad. If you have an ethical system that appeals to a certain value, like
very good,
human life.
Jeff. Okay, Pyong, does that make sense to you? Is that a more adult way of thinking than just black and white?
Well, I heard Jeff use sex and ice cream to swing it around to libertarianism there. So,
Yeah.
no, I'm just kidding with him. Yeah. I mean, as he was talking, I actually my mind started to wander into ethics and meta-ethics and how when he was talking about the guiding principles. I would consider something like that about, that's a meta-ethical consideration, that life is of primary importance and everything should be secondary to that. But
I wasn't really attempting to lay out a particular code of ethics.
No, yeah.
I alluded to it, but I was saying that meta-ethics, you're correct. Meta-ethics is talking about why we need things. Is there such a thing as good or evil? And what do you have to do to have an ethical system? Why would you want one? why is it important and that kind of thing, and that's how these things are addressed secularly. We don't have a Bible with commandments and people ordering us around and telling us what to do. So
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Jeff. But my understanding of ethics is and in a very basic way, I try not to complicate it because it doesn't need to be, but it's determining the rightness of a particular action, or which action is most right. And so I think you establish what your guiding principles are, and then you can go through the analysis and determine what is the most right course of action. With regard to good and evil, I think they're useful terms because everybody knows what they are. They're very poetic, but they're so incredibly subjective that if you want to use them and to be unambiguous, I think there are always better terms to use. So I kind of hesitate to talk about good and evil. I mean, of course, it's important for theists because it's part of their narrative and it's part of the folklore. You want to be on the good team, and it's clearly good to be on Jesus' team. Think about how Michael Ann was just talking. It's clearly good. There is a God, and there's good, and there's clearly the devil, and he's bad. But to me, it's not so clear that any of that stuff is actually the case.
And one of the problems is that over time, ethics has been used really to beat people over the head. It's been used to subjugate people, and it's used in religion. You're declared to be evil. By original sin, by just the fact that you exist. You're born evil, even though you're a helpless baby and a child who wouldn't know evil if it ran over them. You're supposedly somehow evil, and but it doesn't end there. It's been used in all kinds of dictatorships. If you were under the communist regime, you were evil. If you achieved things or whatever, and or you were interested in your own personal well-being, or in the the most egregious case, the Nazis, if you were evil if you weren't part of the master race. Right. So ethics has been used to beat up on people and control people. So it's really kind of understandable when people get their hackles up when they hear words like evil and stuff like that, because we've known so many times that that's been self-serving. But they are useful concepts nonetheless, and there are things that are good and evil to human life as such, properly understood, and
okay. So, let me ask.
It's a big challenge to get past that for a lot of people.
Let me ask the closest thing we have to a believer here, Brojo. Are you there?
Yes.
Okay, Brojo. You need to have good and evil to make faith work, right?
To make faith.
To make, any sort of belief in a God, you got to have good and evil, to be the basis of God, right? God is good, Satan is evil, to be a believer.
To be a Christian believer, yeah.
Well, how about where you're at?
Not to be a God believer. I believe everything comes from that source that you call God, so
good and evil comes from it.
Yeah, could be, or I can also interpret it that everything comes from the source, but how we use things, just like any tool, determines whether it was used for good or bad.
Oh, I see.
The tool in itself, the power in itself, is not good nor evil, but on how we use it.
I see. That's interesting. I didn't know that. Lou, have you heard of that before? That God is just a source, and it's up to us to use it for good and evil?
Not really, no. I obviously don't buy into any supernatural stuff.
Right.
I don't even use the words good and evil really, unless it's just like, what do you call that, in casual conversation. But for the whole morality conversation, I just put it in the chat. Its actions are either beneficial or detrimental to human happiness.
Okay.
And that's what I use. And I'm a utilitarian. I judge everything by the principle of utility.
Okay. What do you think of that, Lyrics?
I don't like the word evil. Something about the word evil, regardless of its connotation, makes me nervous. It makes me. It doesn't like. beneficiary, detrimentary, what Lou was saying, that seems like better words, but I can't get off of the word evil. It's stuck in my brain, you know? And when I think of evil, I just, my brain goes and I get all these images in there they're very bad. You know, we've all witnessed stuff from like TV, random stuff like that. You know, we can imagine. And when I think of evil, that's what I think evil is. Those horrible things.
So can I ask you a question? Do you think it's the case that maybe, I mean, we should have just this one word for things that are so depraved that we use it, we just have it for those things like the Holocaust or whatever, or you know, Mao or Pol Pot or mass murder or anything like that. But do you think the word, do you think the word has been sort of overused and
yeah, very much.
It's just kind of right. It's,
you know?
Yeah, I can see why you would think that, because like, you know, if you call you know, if you call I don't know, some kind of a bank robbery or some kind of a, you know, a teenager rebel or whatever, if you call them evil, and you're trying to, that kind of cheapens the idea of the Holocaust and things that we would hope to just use that word for.
When I hear people say that person's possessed of the devil, or that
Right.
person is
Well,
evil,
yeah,
that makes me lose all concept of the word evil.
right, because we do hear it a lot in the religious context.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or that's
Okay. All right. I know we could take the course into talking philosophy with objective morality and all that, but let's just keep this like 4 centimeters off the ground, okay? Okay, the believer wants to believe in good and evil, you know, while we are like a little bit more, what would you say, advanced? What I'm trying to say is, do you think the believer is being childlike with that sort of thinking? And maybe that's why we got out of religion. It was just too, you know, childish to think of good and evil.
No. I think that's a bit patronizing, frankly.
Okay.
But I think that's part of the language. You know, it's hyperbolic. It's dramatic. It sets clear boundaries as to our group is good, our social group is good. Clearly, their social, you know, that's why Michael Ann, I think, kept talking about Satanists. Like
right.
if there was a party, and the Satanists were throwing a party, it's just like Lou said. You know, is there an open bar? Then yeah, I'm going. You know, right. But with Michael Ann, she was like, nope, Satanists, nope, you got to draw the line, Satanists, because that's their team and this is our team. So I think it's part of I think it's part of the language. And I think it's part of the narrative, part of the folklore, but no, I don't think it's because we're more sophisticated.
Well, you know that there's some Christians that say all Catholics are from Satan.
Do they?
Yeah, they
Okay.
believe that it's just an extension of, it's Satan's church, the Catholic Church.
Sure.
But what I'm trying to say is that I do think it's a childish way of thinking. I you know, you may say it is patronizing, but it is a childish way of thinking. You just say, you know, good, evil, when we know that there's an immense spectrum of behavior.
Well, do you get a feeling when you hear the word good as much as you would if you heard the word evil? Do you get like a same kind of feeling?
Actually, no. The more, you know, it's sort of like if they say this is a good choice for president, you know, I want to investigate it, right? It's the same thing if they say this is an evil choice for president. I still want to investigate. I really don't put any sentimentality to either word, really. It's more like a colloquialism, you know. It's just what they use, the vehicle that they use, like Lou said.
Yeah, and the other part about these words is they're tied to some of our root genetic morals that humans have. When you're saying evil, you don't really mean evil. What you mean is not pure.
Okay.
Where it's an emotional. It's one of those. It's staying there, right down there with the reptilian emotions, and it's really what keeps people in religion, is that moral value of purity. They just value that more than liberal secular people do.
Well, Lou Pyong has something called social disassociation syndrome with the believers, right, Pyong?
What? No. When did I ever call anything a syndrome?
Well, forgive me.
I
But
have.
what would you call it? The premise behind sticking with religion, belief.
Yeah, no, I'm just kidding with you, Bunto. You know you're my favorite Big Daddy.
Oh no, I want to get the right. It's not a syndrome. It's called.
I have a
the
pet
premise
theory.
behind it.
Yeah, I've got a pet theory that it has to do with that indoctrination runs upon a part of the brain that is concerned with like social cognition. And I actually totally agreed with Lou, but I misheard him. And then when I still agree with you, Lou. I don't think your point was fallacious or anything. But when I originally misheard Lou, he said that when they say evil, it's because it's not peer. I thought I heard the word peer, P-E-E-R, and I thought, yeah, that makes sense to me because it's not on their team, But
Right.
yeah. So.
No, that's actually a different moral value.
Right. But see, I don't.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I don't think. Like I said, I don't really think like you were saying. I would characterize it as a judgment. It's an evaluative judgment if something is good or evil. Highly subjective. So, but was that what you were getting at, Bunto? I don't know.
Well, what I want to do, I wanted you to discuss your wonderful theorem of why a believer sticks with his belief.
Oh no, I don't want to do that. It's huge, man.
Because it's more beneficial in the immediate future to hold on to these beliefs because they don't understand what it is to live without them. So the brain just keeps going in the constant state it is, and until we hit a roadblock and we kind of wake up a little bit, we continue with the same behavior patterns, regardless of its religion or any sort of delusion. Until we hit a block, we continue. At least I do.
Yeah, and the other thing I like to point out on these types of things is there's an average intelligence of the species, and just by definition, 50% of us are below that average. And I really think that lower half, if you're in that lower half, that has a lot to do with how you live your life and how you view the world.
Yeah, Bunto, I hear your request. I understand it. I don't want to get into it today because it's massive. Number one, it's massive. Number two, it's just a pet theory of mine. I'm not a brain scientist, and that sort of thing. So,
well, okay.
But we'll do it later. I promise.
Okay.
I'm very familiar with delusion, and I can recognize delusion when I see it. And I see it among a lot of people on here that are theists. And it's very, very, very apparent. A lot of projecting, just a lot of not making sense at all. Their logic is very stray. They some of them don't even appear to be able to define reality. And I don't know if that is an intelligence thing, like Lou was saying, or if it's a complete delusion that they made. Sometimes I get confused about it, but I definitely see hardcore delusion in most fundy theists.
What do you think, Jeff? Is it delusion or is it just natural nature? I started making Jeff get up. Okay, Jeff, is it delusion or is it just the natural way of man thinking that there's some sort of outside force that he can rely upon? I can't hear you, Jeff.
Sorry. I think it's teaching at a young age, indoctrinating. Unfortunately, kids are taught at a very early age to think in these terms, and even as we get older, wiser, and more educated and less delusional, it's hard to break those habits when you're taught those things at an early age. That's why priests and everybody wants your kids at a very young age to teach them these things. And so I don't think it's I think we all probably take on false beliefs, but the more embedded, the more ingrained they are, the harder it is to shake them. I mean, I had a relatively mild religious exposure, and it actually took me a while to break off from it entirely, even though I never really explicitly accepted it either. It was part of my thinking. So I don't mean. I think it is a compartmentalized, non-rational process that people have that's hopefully compartmentalized in most areas, but I think it can contaminate other areas. So I think the best so overcoming it, I think, is a positive.
What always strikes me about people that have these beliefs is how do they make them work? You know, do they want to look at them to see how they work, or they just want to go with it? You know, like
most people that I've seen that have these religious tendencies have what I call emotional intelligence, being aware of your emotions and your emotional states. A lot of people kind of just go with the flow when it concerns those things, and they're not aware of them. And I think no one taught me how to do it, you know. So like I would have some sort of delusion, and I would think that this would be the normal way that how I am. And then I kind of realized that, you know what, maybe I should be being aware of what happens, you know, at any particular time with my body. And that helped me kind of get out of delusion. It made me aware of emotional states that I would get into that would facilitate delusion.
Right.
Yeah, I have seen some really smart people who I think, unfortunately, don't confine their religious views to just that question, and it's understandable why they can't, because if you have a certain mode of thinking in a certain area, it seems inevitable that it'll creep into other areas. So I see, you know, in some people this sort of irrational hero worship or exalted belief in certain institutions that we have, and kind of nationalism is, to me, a form of another form of religion. I see that. So yeah, I think just in general, not thinking critically, that's if we either irrational or non-rational. I don't know what the difference is, but that kind of thinking is detrimental, and certainly those who keep that more compartmentalized than others, they're better off. But I think they would be even better off if they learn to accept the world as it is. That doesn't have to be emotionally unsatisfying. The world is, and the universe is, a very amazing thing. If we're not going to be alive forever, that's you know, it's we weren't alive before. I wasn't alive in the 1950s. And I probably won't be alive in the 2050s either. But you know, either I exist or I don't. I won't be sitting around in the 2050s saying, "Oh, this is terrible. I don't exist." I won't be anything. I'll be the same as I was
beforehand,
60 years before, or I'll be the same 60 years afterwards, unless they come up with some kind of miracle drugs to keep me alive. But
or upload your brain to a computer.
Or upload right. So anyway. So yeah, that's a good point. It's a little it's non-rational. Maybe it's non-rational in the sense that emotions are non-rational, but I think accepting it as true and not just some kind of playful diversion. That's when it gets. I think we need to. We sometimes underestimate the things that we put in our mind. You know, it's kind of garbage in, garbage out. So. We don't want to put too many irrational things in our mind, because they tend to creep into more important areas.
Well said, Jeff. Well, I'm going to go ahead and end the Hangout now, but I'd like to thank all our participants that offered their views on the subject we had tonight. So have a good night, all. Take care.